And you can't find a better name for somewhere to go and do all your shock and suspension testing than Stony Middleton, can you really? Not been afraid to make the frame choice with steel, because that's kind of your company heritage and where you come from with your hardtail range. But also you've taken a left field choice of suspension with X-Fusion, and you know, personally I think it's a change that's definitely paid off. That must be a difficult sell in some circumstances compared to just going for the kind of the default RockShox or Fox setting. So what's the reasoning, I guess?
There's two things. I mean, the first and foremost is, like you say, the forks work brilliantly. This rough cut HLR damper, which is which are in the gold spec and bikes and are an upgrade on the silver spec bikes, they are absolutely superb. I would put them against any fork from any manufacturer. They're tunable, they're stiff, they're light, they work fantastically.
Editor's note, that's the fork size talking about the McQueen, which is the X-Fusion Plus fork. It won the most cost-effective award in the recent MBUK magazine test I did, so I definitely agree with him on this. Sorry, carry on, Si.
Not a problem. So yeah, and on the other side of it, it's partly a commercial decision. You've got is that X-Fusion work with us at OE. We deal directly with them. They're fantastic to work with, and they sponsor our team. They're brilliantly supportive. I mean, the guys who race for us use basically these forks. They don't have anything fancy or the bikes that they race are these, and they defending PMBA champions. We were off the podium one race we competed last year, all the others were on the podium. It's they're great forks. Going to the rear end, we use the Cane Creek shocks because again they're great to work with. The adjustability's there. We tried out a bunch of different shocks, and we feel that these are pretty much the best on the market for what we want. There's the adjustability, the ride feel, the tunability, the weight, everything about them we just really like. So.
Because you've got high speed, low speed compression and rebound, which is very rare on a rear shock.
Yeah.
And you've got the new climb switch as well.
Yeah.
Not that DropLink bikes, that's a necessity. They are a pretty neutral pedaling bike anyway.
No.
But it definitely helps if you're schlepping up a dirty great climb and you want to get out of the saddle, or you're just tired and choppy pedaling. That little gold lever is a godsend. And again, it's not just a standard lockout. It actually works more on the rebound stroke. So the bike still feels sensitive over the small bumps when you're climbing up and you need that little bit of extra grip. But it's not pogoing all over the place. No. So yeah, happy days. I mean, like I say, I can see totally why you've done it, but good to hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. Anyway, we are in Stony Middleton. It's an absolute belter of a track. Si's led me down it once and scared the bejesus out of me, so let's have another go and let's talk about the Flare Max. This is where the bikes all get put together to your personal specification. It's the real deal, is this. Company with its finger right on the pulse, riding the local woods, testing the bikes there. Si's a very, very good engineer. He could have made a perfectly good living in the engineering world, so giving up the day job and throwing it all into a passion is a ballsy move, and it's great to see that it's paid off. And it's paid off for all the right reasons. It's paid off by riding a lot, listening a lot, working a lot, developing a lot, and just producing absolutely belting bikes. The classic Soul, which has probably made their reputation back in the day, and still a belting bike now, and also comes in plus format now. The Escapade, which is growing great guns. That's a road bike that in true Cotic fashion, steel frame, and takes plus tyres, takes standard tyres of a huge volume, just to make the ride that bit more smooth, bit more dynamic and enjoyable, and just open up the limits. I think I'd admit they're not everyone's cup of tea, but they're distinctive for all the right reasons. They're distinctive because of the way they ride, that signature look, that real steel feel. There's a lot of people claiming it, but very few people delivering it. They really are a standout bike. It's a cliche, I've overused it time and again in magazines, but I'm here testing these bikes and rattling on about them for a very good reason. It's because they're a great bike to own, a great company to deal with, and just fantastic bikes to ride, bikes that will make you want to ride. And that's got to be the bottom line of any buying decision, really. A bike that you want to ride and will just, as you see, push you beyond your limits sometimes, but by God, they're enjoyable.
And I'm barely braking here, and I should be, because the tyre is right on the edge. Whoa!
And when you start pushing it that hard, that might be the kind of moment you want to consider putting plus in there.
And that'll definitely teach me to ride the wrong way down uphill trails.
Pick a WTB tyres, predominantly Shimano kit, and Hogue-type wheels. Built, you know, not far over the hill in Lancashire, with those everlasting Hogue Pro 4 hubs on most of the build kits as well, and whatever rim width you want, depending on your riding style. Si's even got the old women's angle sorted these days with a same price women's specific contact point package.
Yeah, just chatter about the drop link range is four bikes. So you've got the, like we said earlier on, we've got the Flare, which is the trail bike, and the Rocket, which is the sort of enduro all mountain bike, and then you can have them in the different wheel sizes, max or not. I think the interesting thing for me, or the thing that I want to trying to get across to people with the demo tour and getting people out on the bikes, and you know, just getting the coverage for the bikes, is that even though it's a very Cotic way of doing these bikes, you know, with the steel front end, and we've got some, you know, a lot of reasons why we do that, because we like the look and the feel and the durability and the strength and all of these kind of things, that once you get past that, they're not unusual bikes. You know, it's a trail bike. You know, the Flare is a trail bike. It's a great trail bike, and it's not exactly the same as everyone else's, but you know, you can put it up against those other brands out there. You know, it's not a completely unique thing just because it's made out.
You can put it up against them and you can win group tests, as it turns out.
Yes, as it turns out, yeah. You know, and the Rocket, you know, the same. It's you know, the material is almost, it's the thing people talk about the most, but for me it's almost like the least important bit about the bike.
It's the ride quality that the steel gives you. I mean, you were talking earlier about how you design the stiffest bike you can make from steel, and come at it from that direction rather than producing an aluminium bike and then trying to get some softness into it.
Yes, yeah, there's definitely that. I mean, it's, you know, because we don't, you don't purposefully go out and build a flexi bike, but there is definitely something about there's something about the give along the length of the bike which is made out of steel, which just lets the bike just deflect a little bit without getting pushed offline or pinging off things, which you can get with stiffer bikes and stiffer wheels and all of these kind of things. You know, it's like there's a great, you know, the great analogy is like with MotoGP, like the motorcycle Grand Prix racing, is that they started making bikes stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, and they suddenly stopped working because they're leant over in corners and a bump hits the bike. Well, the suspension's not going to compress because it's leant over at 45, 50 degrees or whatever ridiculous angle they get to. I mean, obviously it's not quite as extreme as that with bikes, but you can get.
But you can feel that. You can definitely feel that effect when you're ripping through a berm. Like I say, you know, the first time the Rocket really popped up onto our radar was swinging it round berms in Wales. You know, sketchy berms on a filthy day, and suddenly here's a bike with, you know, competing with the stiffest, not just competing with the stiffest carbon and aluminium bikes, but literally running rings around them. You know, suddenly everyone who was on it was a hero and just biting the heels of people who would normally leave them for dust.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. It's, you know, yes, there's a reason why we use the steel, but beyond that, if you look beyond that, they're quite competitive mainstream models. You know, people see, because we're quite a small brand. We use the steel. You know, they use that word niche, and I don't like that in some ways, because it's like, yes, we're small, and yes, we try and look after you as a customer and all of these good things, but they stand comparison against other bikes in the same area. They're not some weird mismatched travel, or they haven't got some, you know, sort of, they don't have 28-inch wheels and something weird like this.
There's no difference for different sects. I mean, you have different way of doing things. I know we were chatting before when we've been riding around. We've had a ride tour of the trails today. You were chatting about, you know, the way that sometimes the way they're seeing, you know, the devil's in the detail. The fact that your bikes have a certain bottom bracket height is picked up by certain people, but then you've got to factor in the fact it's once you're sat on them, and the way the bike, you know, goes down through its travel, it's not the issue you might think it is on paper. You know, they're designed dynamically, they're designed on the trail.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that, there's a reason why they're not completely slammed like a lot of bikes, because we ride up the hills round here as well as down them, which I'm sure most people do, but the hills round here tend to be they're not smooth fire roads, they're kind of knobbly, climbs where you're just constantly on the pedals.
Yeah, and
the
the
bracket gets too low, you're just like dunk, dunk, and it's just bloody irritating.
Yeah, there's definitely a tendency to test pretty much every bike. If you're not careful, you can test it on an uplift, and basically you're testing them all as downhill bikes and just saying they've got different travel. But that's not how the vast majority of people ride. The vast majority of people, they're their own uplift, and they want to, they want to come to somewhere like the Peak District where you're based and just ride these beautiful trails for as long as they can. So a bike that flows, a bike that doesn't punish them, a bike that doesn't, isn't massively demanding in terms of peculiar geometry or a ride height they have to really be careful with their pedaling or even run shorter cranks because of.
Yeah.
That just opens up so many more possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. It's they're fun and involving, but they're user friendly as well. They're designed so you keep riding. I don't like pushing up hills. We've evolved beyond that. That's why we've got the bicycle.
Amen to that.
So I like riding up hills. So and most people do too. When I go out for a ride, I want to be able to get up and down. So that.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're a sociable pace, it's nice to be able to talk at a sociable pace rather than be out of breath at a pace. But again, I think one of the things that's come out with testing on the bikes is just how quick they are, how fleet of foot they are. But it's a stealthy speed. It's not a it's not a snap Group B turbocharged killer rally car kind of jump out of corners, but you suddenly realise you're going really, really quickly. Whether that's up or along or going down a trail the wrong way just for a video edit, and suddenly you are flying. These again they embarrassed a lot of other bikes that on paper I think a lot of armchair theorists would go, oh well, it's clearly going to suffer in this circumstance. Did it hell?
No.
They've just got, I think, it's a bit of a weird analogy, but they can pick up their skirts and they can bloody run across really rough terrain without spilling that speed, without getting choked to a standstill. And like you say, they're not massively different to other bikes, but in that respect, that ductility of the frame, that its ability to kind of find its own kind of path of least resistance through stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they carry speed. I think what it is they don't necessarily, like you say, they don't explode out of turns in the way that some bikes do. But I think what you find is you link a few of them together, and each one of them has brought some energy with it, and going and going and going, and suddenly you're in an upward spiral, and you're probably going through those corners faster until you go into the next one. And again, it's like when you first start riding 29ers or plus. There's almost, because the bike's so smooth on a sort of micro level, you haven't got that sensation of speed until you realise just how fast those trees are going past you. And you suddenly go, well, actually these wheels kind of dull, and almost, in the same way the steel frame kind of dulls a lot of your normal indicators of speed, that sort of clatter and that chatter and that buzz, where your body kind of references speed, is missing. And it's only when you realise who you're hanging on to or who you're dropping on the trail that real awareness of that speed hits you. Definitely. And it's they're it's funny, and you get the feedback from the demos with a lot of this, is that people just come back with this massive smile on their face, and they're just like, that was so fast, it was so great, and particularly with the exclusive demos where people are riding them on their home trails. They know these trails and they know their own bikes, and they're jumping on someone else's bike effectively. We do our best to set them up, but ultimately it's someone else's bike, and they come back and they're like, I can't believe that was so. Going to Revolution, we went to Revolution Bike Park last year for a team test day, and JP from A-Line Coaching, who are some of our brand ambassadors now, he was looking for a new bike, and he'd come along, and he rode a carbon bike from another brand, and he coached there. He knew these trails, and in a break from filming, he nicked Swinney's bike and jumped on it and went up and did a run and PB'd the run on someone else's bike. And I said, well, that was pretty cool. He said, no, you don't understand. I've done that run on my downhill bike. I PB'd that run on the Rocket. And he was like, I've got to get these. And it's like, that's brilliant. And that's why the demo's great for getting people on it. But it's just, like I say, it would be awesome if people could be a little bit more open-minded about the kind of bike it is and the advantages. You know, because everyone, it's a very human nature thing. It's like you immediately look at the downsides. Oh, steel, it'll be this, it'll be that, and aluminium will be this, and carbon will be this, and it'll be that, and you sort of almost sort of grumbling away kind of thing. But you know, look at the upsides. You know, look at the like I say, it breeze with the trail. It's got this fantastic ride feel. It carries speed. It's you know, it's a fun bike. You know, it's all of these things. And yeah, I know that's hard to quantify when you're looking at our website, and we try and get that across. But that's why we do the demos. But
yeah, I'd have to totally agree. You know, it's one of those bikes that absolutely comes alive on the trail, which is, you know, the bottom line. I've been doing this testing game a long time, and it's fantastic to have a bike that really does surprise you, because there are a lot of people claiming the whole steel is real, steel is magical thing on the hardtail side.
Yeah.
But it's not just a case of getting a set of plumbing from a standard supplier. There's a lot of work goes into that. You know, there's a lot of sweat and just tweaking there only need to be very small tweaks, you know, probably on a micromillimeter level in some degrees in terms of wall thickness or butting lengths and things like that. But you've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to verify what you're doing. You've got to check it, you know. And in a way, steel's kind of, I mean, I guess is steel supported by a lot of FEA programs and things like that, or?
I mean, you can get because I mean the thing is that unlike most industries, you know, the fact that steel's unusual in the bike industry is unusual in industry. You know, you design in steel in every other industry because it's tough and it's durable and it lasts ages. You know, when I used to design railway wagons, which I know couldn't be more further for, you know, more, you know, in terms of concept, couldn't be further from a bicycle. But we had to design them to last 30 years. 10 million cycles. Steel's the only thing you do that. You know, you can't build aluminium wagons. You just can't. they drop to pieces, and that's the so yeah, FEA supports all of that kind of thing. You know, that's not really the issue. But the thing is that FEA only shows you so much, and you've got to get out there and ride it. I mean, I know how stiff the bikes are along the length in terms of Newton meters per degree and all of that kind of thing, and just through some testing, I know roughly how stiff some other bikes are, but I can't give you a golden number. I can't give you a stiffness in an actual number that says this is the golden ticket, because it depends on the size of the bike and the wheels and the geometry
and the taste of the rider.
The taste of the rider and all sorts of different things. And that's ultimately why bicycling is still, mountain biking in particular, is still a bit of an art form. Because yes, you design the bikes from a stress point of view to make sure that they're not going to drop to pieces, but the only way you can know for sure that the bike works is to ride the bloody thing.
Yeah, and you know, that's become fantastically clear with all the testing we've been doing. You know, that is, I think you've been surprised sometimes by how well your bikes have done in tests.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, sorry, that sounds a bit underhand, really, saying that, but you know, against some big brands with some big R&D development budgets, and you know, and I'm sure the cynics out there would say big advertising budgets as well. They love that on a forum. And
yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, I know that that's not the case, but yeah, I mean, no, there's very few people making a bad bike these days, and certainly with the advent of some of the some of the completely direct to market sales, there's some insane value for money out there, and design value. You know, just the way bikes look has transformed out of all recognition in 5 years. You know, the level of presentation, all of these things that are really, really important to people. There's some stiff competition out there, and yes, I will happily measure any of my bikes up against anyone else's bike, because I think they stand their ground. But you know, even I'm not immune to the, I'm a fan of biking. I read about the industry, and even I'm not immune to the marketing messages of a lot of the other brands. And you sort of see your bike going into a test against some of these things, and you go, okay, let's
yeah,
shut
but
up and take a breath. But
Yeah.
let's go, let's do
put
it.
your put your frame where your mouth is, really, and
But you've got to, because ultimately that's what the customer does, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're asking the customer to make that same decision, to put that bike against someone else's and go, you know what, I'm going to have the Cotic.
yeah,
So yeah, that's so if you want to look at it as this, as something different and niche, and yes, I'm the only one in the village who's got one, then that's awesome, and I really appreciate that. But I don't want steel to be seen that way. I want it to be seen for the awesome properties that it does have. So I don't want it necessarily to be seen. I don't want it to be in the hipster shop down the in the railway arches. I want it in the high street shop, stacked up as a credible option against all of those other bikes.
yeah.
So you know what?
You want it on the podium of Enduro Series, like it has been.
Yeah, like it has been. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been winning a lot of races in the PMBA defending champions. More podiums the last couple of weekends. It's been so it's the Rocket's a proven race winning bike, and yeah, obviously there's a lot to do with the athletes who are on it as well, but the bike is a part of that, definitely. And I want, so that's it. It's like I say, I just want people to look at it as a credible. It's not a niche option, it's not a weird option, it's not the hipster option, it's a credible option, it's another option. It's not, I think it's better, but then go and ask any of the other designers of the bike brands, we do this because it's this way. They think it's better. Of course they do. That's why there's so many bike brands.
But there aren't many doing what you do.
No, there's not many doing what I do. But stack it up against those mainstream alternatives. Don't look at it, take it on its merits, because I believe it has them. I believe it has them in a lot of ways.
So what happens next?
What happens next? We've certainly got no plans to expand the line. The four models, the four models are, that's where it's at in terms of the market. I think people are buying 5 and 6 inch travel bikes with varying sized wheels. So we don't. I'm sure we could build something bigger than the Rocket out of steel. I think we could do something credible, but I genuinely just don't see that market being that big or that worth going after.
Yeah.
Like a 170, 180 mil bike. I mean, we call it a park bike, maybe, but we sell bikes.
You make national park bikes.
National park bikes, yeah,
not bike park bikes.
Yeah, definitely. And so I don't necessarily. So it'll be evolution more than anything. It'll be evolution.
But you don't see a carbon front end being part of that evolution.
No, that's the least. That's that's one thing that's been interesting is like you talk to because we look at some of these things and you talk to vendors and you find out what's what. But we found out that basically the carbon front end that we'd be offered for a Rocket, for an enduro bike, was about 200 grams lighter than the steel front end that we build. That's it.
Yeah.
And you've got and so I couldn't see the point, because obviously most of the ride feel comes from the front end.
Yeah. And then you're just yet another carbon front end bike.
Another carbon front end bike. And the whole thing about the rock strikes, the scuffs, the dents, all of the things that happen to the front end of a bike, they tend to be the things that don't necessarily agree with carbon all that well. And durability is one of our, it's one of our big things. There's like 5. If you go to the About Us page of the website, there's 5 things that make a Cotic product that's down there, and durability is one of them. Durability, clean lines, interactive, fun, graceful. That is a Cotic product. And so we're not averse to carbon fibre. I did my dissertation on a carbon fibre bike frame. It's I have a reasonable understanding of it. I'm not completely up to speed. I wouldn't pretend to be, but I like it as a material in certain places, but for front ends, for us, I just don't see. There's just no advantage, nor not enough of one anyway.
So Si's obviously always been massively involved in the local Sheffield riding scene, and he's had this fantastic grit and steel map commissioned by Nick Sawyer, the Californian surf and skate artist. Si, anything you want to say about this map?
Yeah, it's sort of. Nobody had ever put together all of the riding spots in Sheffield. It's such an awesome scene, but it's quite disparate. So we thought, put it all together in this, and a piece of artwork with something different that nobody else was doing. And it's sort of partly our love letter to Sheffield and our local area, and partly nice art thing, part help to the local community. It's so it was just an awesome project to be involved in.
So, a bloke who's involved in the local community, who'll build bikes that are some of the most involving around. Mountain biking is an art, and it's a lifestyle statement as much as it's a pure sport. And thumbs up to Si for embracing that, and as fully and as colourfully as he does. Right, bikes in the van, let's crack on.
So I was out here a couple of Sundays ago, popped out the bottom. This is on my local loop, and there's a great big group in the gate. 6 or 8 6-year-olds. Turns out it was his birthday party. That's what he wanted to do, come and ride Blue Steel for his birthday, and he's 6. That's the future. That's how good is that? One of the things that's great, I mean, this is a Tuesday in the Easter holidays, and there's so many people here, and there's families, and they're just have-a-goes, they're not hardcore bikers, they're just excited to be out on their bike in these trails. And it's so cool. It's just so what we wanted when we thought about building in here.